Okay, guys, so now let's start to talk about the hands. And when someone is inside your closed guard and they're using their hands, most people do not understand how to use their hips to basically be able to maintain a strong posture. And so most people, what they do is they actually rely on their hands to maintain posture with some type of post. And so the understanding is my legs are there to break their posture, right? So I'm using my legs to pull them in, and my hands are there to deal with the posts, okay? So the first post we're gonna play with is, we're gonna be here for the closed guard. And this is anytime my opponent has more of like, kind of a lower grip, like this type of wedge. A lot of guys will, sometimes they grab onto like the pants and they have their elbows kind of tucked in, right? So some people, especially like in a gi, some people will actually even grab onto the belt or grab onto the gi pants and start to extend their arms and try to push themselves away and kind of back up to create this pressure to open the legs, right? And so let's talk about what to do when my opponent has a lower post. So when his arms are wedged in here like this, what you notice is right now his elbows are turned inside. And so what happens is you can see the bend of his elbows, right? With the bend of his elbows, because his elbows are tucked in, now if I start to pull him in order for him, because he's relying on his hands to keep this posture, he has to almost tricep extension away. So if I pull his shoulders or pull behind his arms, those triceps start to collapse, right? So when I pull in, now I feel the wedge. I can pull behind his arms or pull his head and bring him in. The other thing that I can do, okay, is I can actually grab inside the elbow. And if I pull his elbow out, right? So all I have to do is reach behind one elbow. And even if his elbows are locked in, if I can turn his elbow out, I can start to pull him in. And look what already starts to open up for us, right? So against these low edges, I start to pull him in. And then I start to break him down by either grabbing his head, grabbing the shoulders sometimes to pull in, right? And then once I start to break, depending on what type of attacking system I want to use, I'll use different grips, okay? But it's important to start to destroy the arms. Again, if he's wedged in, sometimes I can't pull his elbows out. What happens is his elbows are so wedged in tight to his body, the head. Once I pull his head down, he immediately starts to come down, okay? The other thing that we can do from this position is the kickover. So the kickover is actually a much more beneficial tool anytime his elbows are wedged in, because feel the difference when I pull you in. You feel how there's tension in your hands as opposed to me kicking over. Now, once I kicked him over, because he kept his hands where they're at, look where we end up. Really easy for me to sweep him over once I break him down because his knees were off the ground, and now we automatically end up in the mount position. So that's usually done very, very quick. If I'm able to use this kickover, and sometimes, depending on the pulse, sometimes I can even help use my hands to pull with my legs, right? So I can use my hands to help pull my legs in. But once I'm able to kick over, what you notice is his knees came off the ground. All of his weight is laying on top of me. And so now when I decide to take him over, because his hands are jammed inside, right, I can sweep him very easily too. So again, this is very specifically with this type of grip where people are wedged in, right? If I can pull his elbows out, that's always great. If I can't pull his elbows out, I will start to pull behind the shoulders or the head. So I come higher up and start to pull in. Or sometimes I will use the kicking motion. I will kick. Wow, there he goes. Right. So I start to kick over. And normally, if he keeps his hands in place, right, I will wrap around his body, and then we can sweep him. And we'll go over that sweep here in a little bit. And if he spreads his hands out, then I've achieved my goal and I've broken his posture. And so with the wedge, especially if you notice, if my arms are out, my elbows are bent or they're pointing outside, it's really hard to break down. But as soon as the elbows come in, now because my waist bends forward and my elbows bend, it's a lot easier to break people down. It feels a little bit uncomfortable, especially if they have like a really tight wedge. But the better you are at pulling with your legs, the stronger your legs are, the better you are at pulling with your legs, the better you will be at being able to break your opponent down. And once you break them down, once you're able to break their posture, that's when you're actually able to be safe from taking damage. And as you can see, a lot of opportunities will start to open up to be able to attack and to be able to sweep.